Hello, role-playing people, and in this episode I want to share with you my favorite vampire curiosity, a legendary creature from the Book of Storyteller's Secrets for Vampire the Dark Ages. This is a thing that makes its way into almost every game I run, provided it's for a new group who hasn't interacted with it before, and of course, provided players are actually interested in bringing this entity to full bloom. I've already dropped a little hint. What could it be? First of all, let me ask you, those listeners who have played Vampire the Masquerade Redemption, do you remember the item Blood Pearl? It's one of those items that, when consumed, restores some of the character's blood pool, similar to a blood pouch, a blood bag, or a bottle of vitae. Though it's not clearly stated anywhere in the game itself, and the internet isn't providing too much information, we can safely assume the Blood Pearl is a product of thaumaturgy, mainly the level 2 ritual principal focus of vitae infusion, which reads as follows. This ritual imbues a quantity of blood within an object small enough for the vampire to carry in both hands. The object may not be any larger than this, though it may be as small as a dime. After the ritual is conducted, the object takes on a reddish hue and becomes slick to the touch. At a mental command, the caster may release the object from its enchantment, causing it to break down into a pool of blood. This blood may serve whatever purpose the vampire desires. Many thaumaturges wear enchanted baubles to ensure that they have emergency supplies of vitae. System. An object may store only one blood point of vitae. If a kindred wishes to make an infused focus for an ally, she may do so, but the blood contained within must be her own. If the ally then drinks the blood, he is one step closer to the blood bond. The ally must be present at the creation of the focus. Alright, so now we know, even though it won't work exactly like the Blood Pearl of Redemption, you can actually make blood pool replenishing items in the tabletop game as well, which last indefinitely, so you can get a quick refreshment without having to hunt or pop open a blood bag. Now, this thing I'm going to tell you about produces what is probably the greatest blood delicacy in the vampire world. Certainly, vampires experienced in the art of blood preparation will disagree, since that one also allows creative canites to come up with a variety of nourishing blood treats. Blood preparation is a secondary skill that is found in the Dirty Secrets of the Black Hand book, a skill I find very interesting, and sadly, it's something that isn't really mentioned in V20. Let's read the description really quick. You know the effects of various substances on the blood. You can use this knowledge to recognize foreign substances in any blood you taste, and you also know the art of feeding your victims certain substances to get the desired taste and effects. You are knowledgeable in chemicals, intoxicants, spices, and food, and how they affect mortal and immortal blood. You can prepare a variety of flavors for blood feasts, and are capable of combining this art with toxicology to make the blood of living mortals dangerous to the kindred. What's there not to like about this skill? I'm surprised this art of blood preparation isn't mentioned in more books, especially since the Dark Ages La Sombra clan novel gives us an insight into how blood wine is made, though sadly it is a treat people literally die for. To make blood wine, you take a starved mortal, force them to drink as much wine as their stomach can take, and wait for the alcohol intoxication to kill them. This guarantees that the alcohol enters the blood naturally through processes of the human body. Simply mixing human blood with any other substance will result in a drink that kindred cannot keep down. Any substance other than blood entering the undead body will result in violent vomiting. Vampires cannot eat and they cannot drink unless they have a certain merit. So no, you cannot simply mix blood with a tasty cocktail and savor it. But instead, if the alcohol is already in the blood of a mortal, well then, that's an entirely different scenario. The way the novel presents this situation, to keep blood wine coming all night long without having dead or dying mortals all around your fancy ballroom, servants downstairs take the mortal who has died of alcohol intoxication, bathe them very, very well, and proceed to crush them, preferably in a stone crusher, until the blood pours out and can be bottled quickly. Bottles are brought upstairs to your ballroom, and you can entertain your guests with plenty of refreshments, which, sipped regularly, will keep the buzz going for as long as the party lasts. Messy. Oh, so very messy. Not only would it be a gross violation of the Masquerade, but such behavior would rapidly unacquaint a vampire with their humanity. So, say you wanted to gift another kindred, maybe the prince of the city, with a very rare blood delicacy, the absolute best one vampires know of. What would that be? How about the crimson fruit of a blood rose? Let's read. Believed to be a fairy's gift to a toreador, these hedges of barbed wire vines are as deadly as they are beautiful. The fist-sized vermilion blooms seem to sense when mortal blood is near, and the living creature attempting to pass through them will be stabbed by the wickedly sharp thorns, which will absorb blood as long as they are able. A creature who becomes tangled and unable to escape will be drained dry. The blood nourishes the plant and collects in berry red, grape-like fruit. This fruit is a delicacy indeed to Cainites, for it liquefies in the mouth and equals 1 blood point if consumed. There we go. Let me tell you the stats for this miraculous plant as well. Strength 3, Dexterity 4, Stamina 2, Perception 5, Intelligence 0, Wits 2, Willpower 10, and only 4 health levels. It also has an Alertness of 3 and a Brawl of 2, and the thorns attack for 2 dice and also may entangle creatures passing through. This is my absolute favorite plant in Vampire the Masquerade, and I can already hear you saying, wait, what's so interesting about a dumb blood plant? Well, obviously I like it for what it does, the fact that it is a very rare and quite alluring thing which produces delicious blood fruit, similar to the blood pearls I mentioned earlier. But what I like about it the most is precisely the seemingly benign, mysterious nature of this entity, which clearly isn't meant to be used as a combat encounter, and the fact that it encourages storytellers to complement existing information with their own lore. The presence of this plant in a chronicle is a cute little mystery just waiting to be explored. A fairy's gift to a toreador. Maybe it was indeed created by the Fae, the kith of Changeling the Dreaming. This mysterious rose bush marks the appearance of a changeling antagonist. Maybe it was not a changeling, but a demon, a devourer, who engineered such species not as a gift, but as a trap for clueless offspring of Cain, using the lore of the wild. Could it be what remained of a life mage's experiment with vegetation? What if Lilith herself gave this bloom to either Nosferatu or Toreador, the ones who didn't assist Cain when he murdered her children in her second garden, Dainu? The possibilities to tie this into beautiful, beautiful lore are numerous, and one thing is for certain, the existence of a fully bloomed blood rose in your chronicle will not go unnoticed. As shown by the La Sombra Dark Ages novel, inhuman vampires will kill mortals without a second thought for a tasty refreshment which shows off their status. So how far would they go for something as rare as a blood rose? Where does one acquire such a mysterious flower, and what would they do to make sure no one else gets their hands on something so exquisite and probably so coveted? This humble rose bush can lead to a whirlwind of backstabbing and deceit, as everyone tries to get their hands on a supply of delicious blood fruit, or it can be something very discreet, something just the protagonists explore in their downtime, which really allows them to take their minds off of the jihad and enjoy this little secret that is theirs alone to do with as they please, provided they can keep it a secret, that is. Personally, I love presenting characters who are interested in furthering their occult knowledge with a discreet little gardening story hook, which of course requires me to construct some additional lore surrounding these roses for the character to discover and to generate a meaningful and fun interaction. How I usually go about it: for whatever reason that makes sense with the individual chronicle and setting, the character comes into possession of these mysterious looking seeds. Half of the seed looks like a hollowed out white fang, like a snake fang, while the other half resembles a thorn. There are many ways the player character can come to realize the seeds are of magical nature. When handling them with bare hands, a dexterity roll should be requested. On a failure, the seed bites into the hands of the protagonist and proceeds to immediately absorb some vitae, which should raise questions. Auspex 3, the Spirit's Touch, might also reveal something about these thirsty seeds, or Dementation 3, Eyes of Chaos, or Auspex 2, Aura Perception, if the character investigating the seeds decides to check their aura, the aura of Diablerie. Oh my. What are these things and where did they come from? To answer that question, the character will need to do research and experiment, which is why solving this little quest is often a very lengthy and constant exercise of patient curiosity. Asking others might reveal some barely useful lore, or it might reveal nothing. In my own games, if any cult has some lore on these roses, it's the Bahari. And usually having these seeds around in a chronicle signals the presence of the worshippers of Lilith, which aren't just vampires, by the way. There are quite a few mortals who are part of this cult. So after the protagonists become fully aware that these mysterious thorn fangs are seeds and they feed on blood, the players decide in entirety what to do with them. What soil would these grow in? The obvious answer is rich black soil, right? But maybe they sprout in beach sand mixed with warm blood, or within a living human body, forced under the skin or into the rib cage through the sides, thorn side forward, as the seed slowly makes its way in between the ribs and towards the beating heart of its own volition over a period of days and nights. Depends on the storyteller, depends on the protagonist's path of morality. For Sabbat characters, I usually ramp up the inhuman factor because there's no humanity to be lost, while for Camarilla kindred, I make the gardening process a bit more humane. Regardless, this plant is a living puzzle box which morphs from seed to root and stem, and then you get the leaflet buds and then leaves, flowers, and finally the fruit. It requires the storyteller to create their own lore, walking the players step by step through the growth process as their characters probably check on their blood plant at the start of each night, and it invites the players to explore something other than intrigues and politicking. It takes trial and error, and it's okay to fail. Maybe this rose bush grows only in moonlight. Why not? If a seed fails to sprout, it might just turn to ash, so depending on the number of seeds, the number of tries might also be limited. Change the strategy, do something new, barter for more information with local vampires. There are so many ways in which player characters can interact here. We're talking about a magic flower, so the growth process itself can take as long as the storyteller deems fit. Vampires don't die of old age, so provided they stay undead, they have plenty of time. I rather enjoy the idea that getting this plant to the point that it bears fruit from when the first seed sprouts takes a year and a day. the same amount of time it takes to wither a blood bond by being apart. Speaking of, is this thing subject to blood bonds? How would a Tremere practitioner of the green path interact with such a thing? Or what would a Tzimisce Koldun feel when using the Way of Spirit and sensing through this flower? Does prolonged consumption of its delicious fruit lead to addiction? Or is the plant itself the current incarnation of an antediluvian or part of an antediluvian? Could it be a product of Kupala's corruption of the land? Okay, I'll stop asking obviously rhetorical questions for now, but you see my point. It's just a stupid flower. It doesn't speak, has no personality to show, it doesn't give the protagonists active quests, it doesn't make for a good combat encounter or a memorable antagonist, but it's a reminder that underneath the intrigues and the backstabbing, the Sabbat raids and the Camarilla takeovers, the world of Vampire is mysterious and quite beautiful in its dark, twisted way. Of course, whether this strange Dark Ages creature makes its way into the Final Nights is entirely up to each storyteller, but without a second thought, this is my favorite legendary creature in the world of Vampire, an endless source of mystery from chronicle to chronicle, a delightful tool with which to spice up a story, especially low action moments, and of course, something with which to reward a patient player who finds time for something as trivial as gardening. That's just the catch, isn't it? The Blood Rose doesn't have a personality of its own, but it allows a protagonist to show so much of their own personality in the way they interact with it. And besides Lilith, do you know who else had a garden? Smiling Jack, the bloody pirate of all undead. So, Vampire doesn't really do crafting, but it sure can do mixology and gardening. Thank you very much for listening, take care, have fun, and don't forget to play.